where those who perceive truth may strive to make others see.
A big, powerful America, and shoot them for what?
On that continent, we are trying to forge a new identity for which we need each other.
So I want you to imagine that you're a cop and you're pulling somebody over, some guy with a trailer, missing tail light or whatever, and you tell the guy, okay, why you're pulling him over, and then just basically sit back. And eventually you go back to your car, you run this guy, his license plate or whatever, and you find out he's a drug mule. Now, in terms of surveillance and the state of surveillance right now, you'll talk to a lot of people and you'll think the aspect of privacy belongs to the rich or the rich or the military. And I'm not going to say you're wrong necessarily, but in terms of actually access to this element and this idea of privacy, it's not nearly as attainable for the average person. When I was reading this book, Means of Control, a lot of things stuck out. This guy, they made this book. Byron Tao, he made this book, and he's official. He interviewed a lot of people, and or at least he's official on record. He interviewed a lot of people, and he really had a lot to really show us about the state of surveillance. We're talking about in this book particularly, really when it comes down to broad point summaries, governments are able and are literally getting our data from commercial entities that we essentially would trust, and the privacy community. This quote seems prevalent: privacy by default in communities, and we don't have that, because apparently this idea of what apps are available to us are made available to us through Google Play Store and maybe Apple, the Apple Store. They aren't vetted to be secure in terms of what they do with data. A lot of times they openly acknowledge selling data, and this really becomes, you realize how deep the rabbit hole goes when you realize what supposedly innocent data would be capable of when we really look at when we really can pull it, or when people who aren't necessarily government entities can pull this up. The book sheds light on really how it sheds light on a lot of things. One thing that really stood out as kind of a beacon of really hope in terms of the governmental agencies was this guy, in terms of there's a what is this? Where is his name? I forgot. He's a Democrat from Oregon, and he actually like put a stop to data collection agencies when, the idea was, of course, what led to the Edward Snowden leaks. It was really an element of really reacting to this event rather than responding to it. And when it came down to governments, they really scrambled for more power and control over people in general. And in terms of what came out of that, you literally have them saying kind of the quiet part out loud in terms of the Total Information Act, like what they were looking for. But beyond summarizing really what came out or what really happened under, how we reacted, or how our governments reacted to this event, was really, we pulled out this element of in this book, we think we can get apps and think, hey, there's nothing really it's harmless to get this app, and we give this app whatever permissions that it needs to, what we think run properly. But really, it goes a step beyond that. And in some cases, it's even mentioned how communities, for instance, like Muslim communities, were targeted in terms of their prayer time and their apps that were literally based on prayer were targeted in terms of usually data collection comes in, and the siphoning of how the data is formatted to really become useful to these government agencies is a process. And they, the boldness is really clear when you see them go over to the element of really not really having to even to make this more convenient for them. The element of what these, skipping this process, being directly connected to and paying app providers for certain things, right? And this element of just a few lines of code leading to something that is so much more convenient for the few to have control. It was pretty stark in terms of this idea of the senator that I mentioned from Democrat was the Democrat was Ron Wyden, and he was he's been really not necessarily blowing the whistle, but asking tough questions to associations like the NSA and stuff like that. But in terms of really putting a halt to a lot of what a lot of the spying that goes on, a lot of this stuff in terms of the element of really let's call it what's not seen in terms of this element of we call this metadata, right? In terms of the data that is readily looked through. Let's say the feds need a warrant for your actual phone record or for your phone call in terms of actually going into and listening in on the phone call. but that's a that's another kind of when you're targeted by the feds, and they can make a case to a judge by then. Before that, you have the phone records, right? You can guess a lot still based on like a 20-minute call with your with XYZ, what that's based on. If it's in terms of, you can still develop a pattern out of certain information. But the before the age of the internet, you had mail coming in. We were like the idea of metadata. The surface of the mail letter, in terms of before you actually open it, was kind of you really couldn't expect that to be private, right? And this distinguished there's a distinguishing feature between like looking at metadata and data that's made when when you really have to look at something. When it comes down to this element of really how a lot of this stuff comes down to the age of the internet, and how this filters down to the age of the internet, that is still a tremendous gray area for a lot of agencies and a lot of people. And many of us remember, we remember some kind of investigation going on with Russia and Trump, but there was hesitancy for like official agencies to get involved in this, and this idea of like what they were. It would show a hand to really the general public, and the idea is it's useful as long as we don't know about really what happens or what they can do and what's done under the surface. When it comes down to any type of official investigation, that would be full-blown showing, oh, this is what XYZ shows XYZ here for, in terms, this is the data that we have from these companies, and we got these by XYZ means. Rather than do that, it seems like they've chosen to kind of stay out that ballpark in terms of actually showing what they can do. And this idea of really the apps that we have on our phone, and that being kind of our phones necessarily really how our phones really can become tools of surveillance. It's through not necessarily it's not so clean cut and dry as it used to be, in terms of when you see the face of a letter versus when you open a letter. And that has been that seems to kind of be the gray area that we're playing with right now, in terms of really solidifying who has access to this and why would they need access to these things. When an app is free, the thing is, you are the product, right? Most of us hear that, and that's proven to be true to an extent of to a quite literal extent for a lot of these apps, a lot of these companies. Tracking in terms of apps, they will directly sell your data to a lot of people sometimes, and a lot of times they do it. There's a kind of a maze of mirrors in terms of how it gets to government entities. But the truth is, a lot of government entities and agencies, they're the main buyers for a lot of this stuff or for a lot of this data. And in terms of really, really like stopping things like the Total Information Act from coming in, things were crazy back then, but in terms of how much people relied on, mobile phones and, apps and stuff, like things were crazy back then. But in terms of now, I think people have to really, really think about a lot of what they do provide to other people. They talk about, a lot of good is done. The idea of in terms of the example we walked through earlier. This wasn't like the idea was that the drug mule, they found drug mules, and they were able to target drug mules through shady procedures that they didn't necessarily have to get any type of warrant to do. And for when it comes down to drug mules, we may not think twice too much about it, but when it comes down to the process of getting a warrant to get this information is out to a massive public. When it comes down to what they can do with data, private investigators can get data on the same type of data. The idea of what they do with this data, they use this data. They were able to track forget where exactly, but it was gay priests. I think it was in New York. I'm not sure, but the idea of what it's the wild west in terms of a lot of this stuff is put online and people bid on it in terms of a lot of particular data, and it's gotten so crowded that a lot of people are going into understand or this idea of a lot of people are using this market to sell fake data now, and intelligence agencies caught on to that, and they started literally going straight to the we talked about how they got bold and decided to the processing of the information to where it's useful. A lot of agencies went straight to apps, and they said, I'm not gonna deal with these guys who sell fake data. I'm gonna come straight to the app owner. And it gets it in terms of where we're at now, in terms of and what just to give you guys a scope of really how deep in it we are right now. There are Bluetooth, there are trash cans that have Bluetooth features attached to them, and the idea is if your phone passes a trash can, the idea is, well, we know to feed you data associated with this particular location. When it comes down to your car and tracking where you've been, your car gives out random signals or your car's computer can give out random signals and you don't even understand. But the element is like, oh, you weren't in your garage on X day, or X set of days. It's a tool. It becomes a tool very fast in terms of really like this, like what's in your pocket right now and what was done, back in the day before the age of the internet. Like this has been equated to really having a I believe it's a tracking. I forgot what they called it exactly, but they've literally likened it to a tracking device that they would put and give to secret agents. But every single person has one now. Very, very stark, but like I said, like in terms of the solution, it appears. The solution for me is just kind of when more people know about it, then they'll do things that are really, that they find appropriate in terms of what's done more light to this particular issue being kind of the solution to how we do a lot of this. Like I said, there's some good that can come out of it if it's done right, and but I mean, in terms of the Wild West right now, like I'm thinking like, let's say you want to like you're a hacker and you're sitting like outside, some kind of hotel, and you get a track on somebody that only comes to the hotel like for 2 hours or something. Now all of a sudden you trace that back to another location and there's another phone there, and you find out like, this person seems to have a wife, but they went to this hotel for 2 hours. As a hacker and as somebody, you can see how this can get very, very dark if this is information that's like publicly available. And a lot of this stuff is in terms of like really, really processing things for the government. A lot of this stuff filters down from Twitter. In terms of like a lot of really what happens in terms of the power of information and what that can do. It filters down from Twitter. It filtered down originally from Twitter, but like there's all sorts of apps in terms of like I haven't heard too much about Instagram, haven't heard too much about Facebook. I'm suspicious of I'm suspicious of why certain things weren't mentioned still, so I won't mention that. I won't talk about them as if they're a I don't think any app is particularly safe, but in terms of those popular apps that are training, like they're really trained on people in terms of really to keep people on the app more and more, in terms of like whether it's scroll sessions through like a lot of Instagram or anything like that, then you get I think it gets dark really fast in terms of what they can do. Another honorable mention is Google, in terms of what Google can do. There was forget what I don't know, but there was some election where Google was like biased towards one party or another, and this element, like a lot of like when it comes down to reminding party members, they noticed that, if they they could literally, like, this was like, what's really disturbing is this was like kind of like the flip of a light switch, turn advertisements on and off. And their advertisements for anyone who was, for this particular political party, that was it. That was, they get reminders earlier, they get more reminders. And that bias by Google, a private company or a private search engine, that was it. It had like I want to say like 6% difference in terms of how the voting turned out or something like that. But that wasn't necessary. Like, I don't think Google was even mentioned during, or Google was mentioned, of course, during this, like, in this book. And I think that was like that's another chapter in terms of, or another book entirely in terms of privacy in general. But what's coming down the pipeline is a lot of these, like, when it comes down to privacy, like, if you look up who's funding politicians, a lot of these guys are like really large tech guys. And when it comes down to what's coming down, like why their interest in politics, it seems that this would be linked to the privacy laws that are kind of in the gray zone right now. And I'm like looking up their interest in politics and what goes on right now. I think we really, really need to have an eye on a lot of what happens here, a lot of what can happen here. And there was a few meetings where, like, they demonstrated the power of really, like, data, in terms of, like, some guy comes in and decides to have a meeting, or decides that, hey, I'm going to show these guys in this meeting what the data can do. And he kind of I think he used a Grinder dating app or something. I don't remember what, but it was like really, like, it was just like he just wanted to kind of embarrass the people there in terms of the agencies. But one simple app, I think he was able to geolocate, like, where government, like, buildings were or something like that. And I don't know, it was pretty dark. It was pretty embarrassing for them, but easy in terms of for people who don't necessarily have good intentions. When it comes down to really protecting a lot of data and what privacy today, they have, like, I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with the term de-Google, but, like, they have, like, de-Google parties and stuff like that. And that could be something, but really, really what, like, in terms of the element, there's literally a chapter called The Privilege of Disappearing. And, I mentioned de-Google because you can take out of your Google Pixel. You don't necessarily have to have, it's kind of open source in terms of the Pixel by itself, right? Like, you can kind of de-Google your phone in terms of take out the, I believe you don't necessarily have to link your phone to Google, even though it's a Google Pixel, which sounds weird, but you can do that. But you don't have to have that operating. You can have a different operating system on that phone, and it seems like there are people who want to kind of get into this element of what is it, selling to government selling to government agencies, but also selling to, like, people who are, like, really, really incentivized to be private enough to buy their product. I think it comes with a consultation, but they have, like, some kind of alt, they call it alt OS, and they also have like there's another one too. I think it's called I don't know. I think it's by CIS Mobile, but I don't know what. But the element is, I mean, the idea is they sell to government agencies, and one sells to or one sells to like really rich people or people who are really into some dark or not necessarily dark shit, but like the criminal side of things. Basically, anybody with money and incentive, they can buy it. And like the people who's the company, I think there's two, because one company decided to go, hey, look, we'll sell to government contractors and we'll be, government contractor friendly. And the other one chose, hey, we'll sell to any commercial, like we'll go completely commercial with this thing. And they, like the people who went completely commercial, they were, I want to say they were either about to be charged or something, but the idea was, they fought the case, and but the idea is they had to fight the case because they were being used by a government, some kind of like criminal or some kind of criminal entity at the time. And when it came down to government, governmental, agencies or workers, they didn't have to fight that. And I guess when it comes down to a lot of really this idea of disappearing, the government commits crimes and they don't necessarily have to pay all the time in terms of the same way we do. And really, what is it like the privacy means so much to, whether it be government agencies or, commercial entities. But really nowadays, you really like, tracking someone through their phone is becoming more and more likely. And really in terms of the interest, and like these are really like the big tech companies, they're really big in the politics, whether that be one tech company or another, but they're backing political candidates. And the idea is, I believe the term is data is the new oil, and they want more, I'm thinking like in terms of these privacy companies, it's safe to assume that they want more of that data, and to be made available, even like especially if you don't know about it. And that is it. I'm your bookman for this report. I am sleepy, and please like and subscribe, and also I will see you next time. Thank you.